The first ever anime dating back to 1907 was discovered in 2005. There might have been others before it, but they were either destroyed or lost and didn't make it to our time. Reasons for this are many, but they are mostly commercial. After the films were shown in big cities, they were sold to cinemas in smaller cities, where they were eventually cut and sold as single frames. Discovering the evolution of Japanese animation film, or anime for short, over the course of its 100-year history is a fascinating research on how these films and TV shows reflected a nation's history, cultural and social development, but also became a worldwide phenomenon. Even before the appearance of films, Japan had Utsushi, a magic lantern show popular in the 19th century. Utsushi entertained audiences with painted figures moving across a projection screen. The first anime officially produced and distributed in Japan was released in 1917. In its early years, the anime industry had many ups and downs, but managed to survive and adapt. In the beginning, the films were short, made with few frames, stenciled on a strip of celluloid. They were inspired by animation coming from the West, but were plagued by a trial-and-error process and overshadowed by the success and popularity of Disney cartoons. They also had a hard time keeping up with Western innovations, especially with the appearance of first sound and color films. The 1930s saw a lot of improvement, both in style and process of making the anime, as well as in the sound department. The musical scores were complemented with lip-syncing. Since the animation wasn't yet ready to follow the mouthing of words, the lip-syncing was way off, but it was a step forward. This period is the start of the war propaganda that would spill over into 1940s. 1930s also saw the first adaptations of manga into anime in 1935. During this period, the public were served comic and animation content as propaganda, supported financially by the government, who saw its appeal among the audience. During the World War II era, Japan used its anime industry to distribute war propaganda by creating short films criticizing Western politics and promoting the war effort. These films often mocked the reigning mascot of American animation, Mickey Mouse. Prominent films from this era include a set of characters known as Sea Eagles that promoted the Japanese Imperial Navy. They appeared in multiple propaganda projects, including the first ever feature-length anime, which detailed a successful attack on Allied forces. Following the end of World War II, the very first modern anime production company, called Toei, was founded in 1948. Toei succeeded in pushing anime into the mainstream during the 1950s and 1960s. Since then, this company grew into a giant, spewing huge hits such as Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, Digimon and many others. In the post-war period, anime and manga began to flourish, with influences coming from the West to some of the biggest anime artists of the time. With the invention of television, Astro Boy, which aired on Fuji Television in 1963, became the first anime series in history. For its time, Astro Boy was a creative achievement, since the show's creators had limited funds and had to create a sense of movement through sound and dialogue instead of actually drawing the characters' movements. This was far from ideal, but it did help propel the creativity that carried the anime industry into the future. The Tale of the White Serpent from 1958, which was the first color anime feature film by Toei, was released in the US in 1961 to a great success. This motivated Toei to release a new feature-length anime annually. Toei made another significant contribution to the anime industry by developing the so-called money shot. This was a cost-cutting method of animation that put emphasis on key shots in the film by animating them with more details than the rest of the film, which had simple animation. The success of Astro Boy was influential to a lot of other studios, who started spewing out anime about robots and space. Anime for television continued to be produced and met great success, with titles like Kimba the White Lion, the first magical girl anime Sally the Witch, Speed Racer and many more. In the 1970s, the rising popularity of TV left a big mark in the Japanese film industry, both live-action and animation. Many of the animators who had worked exclusively in film switched to TV to fill the growing demand. The end result was a period of experimentation and expansion of styles, when many of the common tropes that can be found in anime today were coined. One of the biggest genres that rose in this time revolves around giant robots and vehicles called mecha. Some early works include Mazinger Z, Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, Space Battleship Yamato, and Mobile Suit Gundam. This was also the time when anime studios relied on literature for ideas, as is the case with the classic Heidi Girl of the Alps. Heidi was hard to sell in the beginning, since it was a simple and real drama for children, in the time when TV networks wanted fantasy and action to captivate children. Heidi turned out to be a big success in many European countries, not just Japan. Candy Candy and The Rose of the Versailles, two other opposites of action-packed shows, also earned high popularity across the globe. In the 70s, animation teams were infused by young talent who brought a fresh air of creativity. Tomorrow Joe from 1970 was a big television success and earned the iconic status in Japan. The first installment of the Lupin III anime was released in 1971. By 1978, over 50 shows aired on television. In 1983, CGI entered the anime industry. The animation of helicopters in Golgo 13 was actually the first noteworthy use of CGI worldwide. The 1980s were considered by many to be the golden age of anime, with many of the genre's most beloved titles released in this decade. Dragon Ball, Captain Tsubasa, Akira, these are just a few of many that became synonymous with anime both in Japan and overseas. The success of Dragon Ball started the martial arts genre and influenced many martial arts anime. There were also some experimental films produced in this period with ambitious production costs which didn't return the investment, bankrupting some anime studios. The themes of teamwork, focusing on the bond between players, introduced in the 80s sports anime, is still present in anime today. Also, 1985 was the birth year of one of the most iconic anime studios, Studio Ghibli. The 80s started a visual renewal of anime led by new directors like Ghibli's Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. Anime also began exploring more complex stories, introducing new genres like boys' love and impacting cultural norms. 80s is also known for introducing the subculture otaku, known as superfans of anime, manga, video games, cosplay and similar topics. The 80s also introduced OVAs, original video animation. These were special episodes or short films previously not shown on TV or in theaters, but sold as home video formats. Although the design of anime characters progressed non-stop through the decades, in the 1990s they got some of the features that can be linked to this decade even today. The L-shaped noses, mouths high on the face, and high-volume hair are among the most recognizable. The animation style included thick bold lines and high-contrast shadows. The 90s also saw a drastic improvement in audio. The opening and closing songs became evergreen hits. More attention was also paid to original scores that elevated the scenes. This is the era when anime started to spread worldwide like a wildfire. Shows like Digimon, Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, and many more sound familiar even to non-anime fans. Evangelion started a trend known as the post-Evangelion shows. They revolved around giant robots with religious or other complex stories. They were mostly shown late at night, which became the time slots for experimental anime. These shows helped further spread awareness of anime outside of Japan. The robot genre that thrived in the 70s and 80s began its decline in the 90s, with very few shows being successful. It wasn't until 2002 that the genre regained popularity. By 1998, over 100 anime shows aired on television in Japan. In late 1990s and early 2000s, anime with complex and mature themes became more common. They often dealt with serious topics and had philosophical narratives, such as the 2006 Death Note, a fan favorite. The fans welcomed this genre with open arms, and it quickly became more widely popular, so much so that new examples continue to be released to this day. 2000s also saw the increase of piracy as the internet became more widely available. While this issue was somewhat addressed with cheap streaming services, it isn't gone even today. The 2000s are also known for popularizing beautiful youth, bishonen and bishoujo character design. Bishonen stands for pretty boys who have androgynous beauty, and bishoujo stands for cute girls. The popularity of genres like romance, harem and slice of life also rose in the 2000s. By 2004, over 200 shows were aired on television. Since 2010, the design of characters has seen many changes, as every studio has been trying hard to bring something new to the table. Noses of anime characters became tiny and barely visible, mouths and even entire faces sit lower on the head, with large foreheads and high-volume hair and no prominent cheeks. The bold lines of the 90s made way for softer strokes, and the highlights became less intense. In 2015, an all-record high of 340 anime series aired on television. In 2020s, anime rose even more in popularity because of streaming platforms available worldwide. Demon Slayer Mugen Train became the highest-grossing anime film and one of the highest-grossing films in the world in 2020. Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen were also among the top 10 discussed TV shows on social media in 2021. In 2022, Attack on Titan became the first-ever non-English language series to earn the title of world's most in-demand TV show, previously held by only The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones. The evolution of anime never stops. Anime came a long way from celluloid and paper cutouts, arranged for stop-motion animation, which was groundbreaking for its time. Later, animation was made with hand-drawn methods. In recent years, we saw the increased use of 3D and CGI. Anime is still finding its footing with 3D and CGI, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Also, the Hollywood's craze for remakes hasn't missed the anime industry. Inspiration for anime films and TV shows still comes from all aspects of life, adapting manga, literature and video games, or writing straight for anime. Sometimes these small stories grow and turn into entire franchises, but successful franchises are getting more and more scarce. Evolution sometimes happens on a one anime level, when studios decide to change the style to match the demands from the audience or to give the anime a different vibe. Wherever the theme, anime always seem to strive for the right values, discern good from evil, and inspire people to strive for their better selves. Many anime heroes have success stories that motivate people to not be afraid of setbacks and chase their dreams. Outside the borders of Japan, anime has succeeded in bringing the culture of a faraway country to every corner of the world, which is not something a lot of media did. Will anime continue to evolve into further improvement, or have we reached its visual and influential peak? We cannot tell for sure, but we can't wait to see what future anime will bring. What are your favorite anime films and TV shows? Tell me in the comments below.